Let's say welcome to Jon Witterick and say welcome.
Thank you. Right, I think this is the third year that I've been coming to. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Is that clear? It's not too echoey a little bit?
No, it's okay.
I don't know if it can come down just a little bit. Quite a little bit. Probably just a little bit, I think it's quite loud. Yeah, I think it's my third year I've been coming to Truthjuice Birmingham. So always a great turnout. So thanks very much for coming along. I think the first year I spoke about money. Last year I spoke about the Olympics because that was what was going on at the time. And this year I'm going to be talking about a little bit about money and my story really, and how I started up ending up the website, and how I suddenly realised, as I'm sure a lot of you know, that the whole banking system is totally corrupt and fraudulent. But what I'll be doing is giving you my take on that. But rather than just looking at the problems, I think at the moment, I think what we're trying to do is actually look at solutions. Because it's very easy in the so-called conspiracy world, or truth world, or call it, whatever you want to call it, is to look at everything that's like negative and not actually look at the positive and how we can go forwards and change things. So I feel that's quite important. So the first half I'm going to be looking at the sort of like the debt thing and my story and the website and stuff like that. And basically if you've got any credit cards, how you can get shot of them without paying them. Well, no, obviously how you can offer to pay them off if you actually get the actual information you need. To actually prove that you borrowed anything in the first place. So I'll be looking at that. Today is quite a sad day because one of the most prolific guys on our website, on the forum, actually died. Well, he died a couple of weeks ago, or a week or so ago, and it was his funeral today. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be there and be here as well. But the guy, he was absolutely prolific on the forum, and I think he probably overdid it to the point where his heart gave up. Unfortunately, he was only 43, so which is quite frightening. But I think he probably had to ascend a little bit early because he obviously had an agenda in the non-physical one. That's what I'm taking. Anyway, I'll carry on and get started. What I say before any talk is, please don't believe anything I say. Okay, that's or anyone else says. Certainly not if they're on the television. That's equally. To make sure you don't believe anything. It's really finding the truth for yourself, and that's for me. That was really important. When I first started out looking for stuff, all we had was the internet. There was nothing on the internet because I didn't even have internet access when I sort of started out looking for the truth. And I sort of woke up in about 1999, 2000, when I saw the sort of Twin Towers come down. I thought, well, that's got to be. I don't believe it, but I didn't know why or how or anything. It was only a few years later when the internet came up, and I thought, that's how they did it, or this is thermite or whatever it was. And we'd start going to arguments. So when I was sort of started waking up, there was Nexus magazine's still going, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that's basically all there was. There was Nexus magazine, and then there's like audio tapes. There was Dave Starbuck. Anyone come across Dave Starbucks? Yeah, it's not Dave as in Dave Murphy Starbuck, but this is the guy up north that was like Dave Starbuck, who Dave Murphy actually copied his name. So I'm just thinking, what a long way we've come as a movement, and it's interesting because just in the car on the way up here, we were talking about. Andy was actually saying, Andy Clay, we're talking. I was saying how at one time, if you mentioned 9/11 was an inside job, everyone goes like, no. But now if you go, 9/11 was brought down by thermite, they go, no, you're kidding. No, it was like space weapons or. And then people are arguing about whether it's planes or no planes. So we've come a long way. As Andy said, we're arguing about the semantics of it now, rather than whether it happened or whether it was actually a conspiracy or not. So on to the money. The reason why I talk about money is because I ended up in quite a bit of debt. I had my own business. It was quite a successful business, and I was able to employ a lot of my mates, which was really good fun. And unfortunately, I sold it. I suddenly thought, right, I've got to get rid of this. I'm going to move in a different direction. And I sold it, didn't get paid, ended up with a huge amount of debt. But I realised that reality was an illusion, so I didn't get too upset about it. But I always thought there's got to be a solution, because what was happening, the debt collectors were phoning me up. And something was happening to me when the debt collectors were phoning me, because what would happen, most of the time I was fairly confident. Not overly confident or anything, but I was fairly confident sort of guy. And I'd get phone calls from debt collectors, and I'd say, oh, is that Jon Witterick? As soon as I go, yes, my voice would go all croaky, and I'd start shaking and sweating, and I'm thinking, what's going on here? This is really strange. And I tried to sort of work out what I was feeling. And I think what it was, I was actually feeling guilt and shame for being in debt. But I thought, well, why isn't the government feeling guilt and shame for being in debt? Why is it me? What was it? Because it's not something you brag about when you're in a pub, is it? Unless you're someone like me. Yeah. And the only unfortunate thing is I haven't actually got any debts anymore, because I got rid of them all. But didn't actually pay them off. But this is the crazy thing, that we're in a system where the amount of debt, and I found this, I've got this little app, and at the moment it's one, I can't even read the number out because it's such a big number, but I don't know if you can see the number on the back there. That's the current debt clock, and it's at 1.478 trillion pounds. That's just the UK debt, and that means that every single one of you in the room, currently as of this moment, owes 23,225. That's every man, woman, and child. Okay, so if you're working, you're probably going to have to pay for 2 or 3 people that aren't currently waged. So can you see this debt is absolutely impossible to pay off. We're just like spiralling into more and more debt. So what I try to do is work out how to explain what the problems with the current financial systems are. And the easiest way to explain it, and what I try and do is keep everything really, really simple, because I don't like anything complicated. I use 1 or 2 graphs, but just to show which direction things are going in. I don't start getting into economics. Somebody asked me if I got a degree in economics. I go, no, because I've spoken to people with degrees in economics, and they start quoting or arguing about theories and this and that, and it's almost like they can't see the simplicity of it. They can't see what the actual problem is, because they're getting into all these really complicated sort of ideas that they've got in their head, which are all just created. And this is part of the illusion. Make it very, very complicated so people like us can't understand it. As I said, well, if you can understand monopoly, and I feel that I can explain the problems with the current system to, if you can't explain it to a 10-year-old, a fairly bright 10-year-old, then forget it. And because that's about the level of my sort of understanding anyway. So, here we go. Strangely enough, Monopoly is still the world's #1 board game. Quite interesting. But even Monopoly, it's how it was brought about. There's even a cover story for how it was created. And if you go onto a website called Anti-Monopoly, and there's even now a game called Anti-Monopoly, it wasn't actually created by some guy that thought, oh, it'd be really fun to play it, like get loads of money. It was actually created by an economics professor to actually show that the current system cannot sustain itself. This is the problem, you see. So the idea was that they had this game. It was a little bit more complicated because they would bid for properties and things like that. But so it was simplified. But the whole idea is to show that in the end, the person that wins, okay, the person that, you think, has anyone won Monopoly? Everyone's played it here. Has anyone not played Monopoly? Yeah. Okay. So, when you actually win at the the game of Monopoly, what you've got to realise is you have just bankrupted yourself. Because if you the idea of winning Monopoly is bankrupting all the other players. Now, if you bankrupt all the other players, what you've effectively done is bankrupted yourself because there's nobody to trade with. Can you see? A good parasite never kills its host. So this is what's happening at the moment. We're in that stage because it's almost they're coming up with brilliantly creative ways of taking more money from us, aren't they? Has anyone noticed that, or is it just me? Bedroom tax. Isn't that brilliant? Hang on, there are people with like spare rooms. We can take them off them. We can't have them having spare rooms. You know, and they tend to go for the poorest people in our society, if you notice as well. Absolutely frightening. There was I clicked on one of these online, excuse me, one of these online, things. It was about a police inspector who had been overseeing taking food and warm clothing from homeless people on the streets in the middle of winter. And this is the police's, they're able to do this. You know, if you take away somebody's sleeping bag, you might as well shoot them. You know, in the middle of winter, what are they supposed to do? I mean, this is you know, quite surprising. It's almost like the banking system is designed to do. Did anyone see the news just recently about RBS actually going for businesses? This was in the news just recently. Going for businesses, and what they're doing is like messing up their, you know, calling in loans, you know, early to be able to bankrupt them, to be able to take their collateral from them, which is criminal. Since RBS has been bailed out by you and I. This is the frightening thing. I might try not to get too caught up in the emotion of it, but it is crazy, isn't it? Absolutely crazy. And the thing is, you see, you don't see many bankers behind bars. You see shoplifters, you know, persistent shoplifters going, yeah, take time, you know, for taking loads of bread to feed their kids. But you don't actually see many bankers actually ending up behind bars, do you? So, their plan's to take you for every penny you've got. Your plan is to stop them. Now, and this is their trump card, isn't it? What I was saying is, when the debt collector started phoning me up, my sort of voice was getting all shaky, and fear. So, you probably can't see it. I'm going to stand back a little bit. Am I still in shot there? Great, excellent. So, when I started out, you know, it was only once I realised what was going on that, you know, when the debt collector started phoning me up, instead of my voice going all shaky and me getting really, really nervous, what I'd started doing to begin with, I'd listen to Radio 3 in the day because it keeps me nice and calm and a nice bit of classical music. I like other music as well, but throughout the day I like to keep calm. And what I'd do, when the debt collectors phoned up, the first thing I did was just put the phone next to the speaker, just so that, is Jon Witterick there? Yeah, just one moment. And I put the phone next to the speaker and I tiptoe away really quietly. And then that was my first sort of like challenging, because up until that point I was feeling really guilty and sort of shameful of it. And then afterwards, as I got more learnt more about how debt collectors buy the debt for less than 10p in the pound, and the banks didn't have any money to lend you in the first place, that I started getting a bit braver and I started asking security questions. You know, like what's the capital of Peru and your mother's maiden name and stuff like that. And you can actually have some really good fun with them by standing up to them. But once you realise, if you think that you're sort of very bad because you can't pay them off, you realise that you haven't realised that the whole game is stacked against you. And that's something that I realised. And of course, just as with Monopoly, the currency is just worthless paper. Now, you've got to realise that only 3% of the current money supply is actually in coins and paper. The rest of it is all electronic. And who owns these electronic systems? The banks. It's crazy, isn't it, that they actually own the system of, it's not even the government that have set up the computers, so we have some sort of control over it. No, the banks actually own the computers, and so, they've got complete control of it. And of course, the government and the Bank of England are working with the banks. You've got to realise that. So many people go out of politics. I'm talking to preaching to converted here, I'm sure, but I'm sure a lot of you are aware of that. But what is frightening now is you've actually got, for kids now, you've got electronic monopoly. So instead of the whole fun of playing Monopoly, is that you have a big wad of notes, and you feel like, you're worth something, and you can buy hotels and stuff like that, and go right around that little capitalist sort of like dream. But now they're teaching kids to have plastic cards, and then as soon as they go to college or university, then immediately they get into debt, and they get used to debt very early. I mean, they come out before they start work. If they've gone through the sort of university route, they could be £30,000-40,000 in debt before they start earning anything, apart from part-time jobs. It's crazy. And this is the problem with fractional reserve banking, is that, excuse me, sorry, I'm coughing into the microphone. Has anyone here had a loan? Can I just have anyone like put their hand? Oh, there's quite a few, over half, I'd say, at a quick guess. Now I'm going to disagree with you. None of you have ever had a loan. Okay? The idea that you went to the bank to actually borrow money that other people had deposited is a fairy tale, and it's not true. It doesn't work. Why they call it loans, that's another thing I've got to do, is actually phone up the advertising standards. Because I've seen they're still advertising loans. And I know that they haven't got any money to loan us. Because what they do with fractional reserve banking, what they need is a very tiny proportion of money, of collateral, and that collateral can just be worthless paper, so they can actually lend out more. If they've got £100, they can lend out 7, 8, 9 times that amount. But then, on that amount, they can lend out more. Banking's a brilliant business. I wish I'd thought of it. But the whole thing is, you see, it is completely... Let's do something really simple, because I've been talking about this for years, and I still get lost for words in how corrupt and crazy the system is. So, this explains really what the banking system does. I have 10 marbles in a bag here, okay? I'm hoping I've still got 10, because occasionally 1 or 2 go missing. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Right, 10 marbles there. Can you see 10? Right, okay. Right, I don't know if we've got any magicians or conjurers here, but what I'm going to do is put 10 marbles back in the bag. Right, can anyone get 11 marbles out of the bag? Have we got anyone here? Any conjurers? No, please, nobody. And yet, every time the bank, so-called, lends you money, that's what they want. They want that 11th marble from you. Well, the 11th marble doesn't exist. It can never exist. So what they're having to do is inflate the supply of marbles the whole time. This is what's happening with the money supply. This is why the money supply is growing exponentially, because if they suddenly cut the money supply off, we all suddenly default. The other thing, of course, is that people, that can't find that 11th marble, basically, and of course it's compound interest, so it multiplies and multiplies and multiplies. Of course, people can't default, and this is why we've got countries, businesses, and individuals defaulting at the moment. Because with compound interest on money which is created from nothing, it's crazy. And now, when you get politicians actually saying, oh, we've got to have austerity. Now, I challenge them. I say that either I am damn stupid, which is a possibility. I'm not discounting that because I'm not that bright, or they are lying. But when you look at the money supply and the debt, when you see that the money supply actually the debt outstrips the money supply, it can never be paid off. So I had the opportunity to write on behalf of Occupy about solutions to the current problem. And so what I suggested is that we had to default on the national debt, and if you couldn't pay your own sort of bank loans off, default on personal debt. And I was absolutely attacked from all angles by, a lot of it was, we worked out, a lot of it was barristers from the City of London, because that would ruin their little game, wouldn't it? We'd all suddenly be free. We could, can you imagine what we could do if we weren't burdened with debt? We're now paying more in interest on the national debt than we are on education, per se. It's absolutely crazy. So, now there's me saying that they create money out of thin air. Well, I'm just call me a conspiracy theorist or a truther or whatever terms you want to use. However, when you actually get people like this is Mervyn King, who's now the ex-governor of the Bank of England, who actually says, when banks extend loans to their customers, they create money by crediting their customers' accounts. So hang on, he's saying there that they create money, but he's not the only one. You've got Graham Towers, Governor of the Bank of Canada, actually saying each and every time a bank makes a loan, new bank credit is created, new deposits, brand new money. So, can you believe it? Is that bankers aren't even keeping it a secret. There's loads of them. Banks lend by creating credit. They create the means of payment out of nothing. So, why do we have to pay it back with interest? Is that a fair question? Is that a fair question? It goes on. Here we go. Martin Wolf from the Financial Times. The essence of the contemporary money system is creation of money out of nothing. Creation of money out of nothing. He then said, by banks often foolish lending. It can't be lending if they're creating it out of nothing. It's creation. And here we go, Encyclopedia Britannia. Banks create credit. It's a mistake to suppose that bank credit is created by the payment of money into banks. A loan made by a bank is a clear addition to the amount of money to the community. So it's not even a secret. And the last one, here we go, this is chairman of the FSA, the financial crisis of 2007-2008, which we are still living through, occurred because we failed to constrain the private financial system's creation of private credit and money. Okay, so can you see that the reason, they talk about, we've got a financial crisis. They don't actually say, well, the crisis is the financial system. And that's what I woke up to. And you realise that, if you want £1 million or $1 million, and you're a bank, all you have to do is go tap, 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 bang, it's created. So, what I did, I thought I'd do a little bit of research. So I went onto the Bank of England website. Oh, there, sorry, I just missed cut the slide. Biggest scam in the world. Bankers charging you interest on nothing. And why is there so much debt? Individuals and family in the UK now have that's actually gone up now. I think I might even have in the second half, might even actually have the actual figure, but it's gone up now. Personal debt is at a record high, as you realise. People are now having to borrow money to be able to feed their families. Crazy. So I did a bit of research, and I went to the Bank of England website, just for a laugh, and it's really interesting. I think they probably had to take this down now, because it's just so ridiculous, and it's quite funny. But it's called Your your money, what the bank does. Now remember, the Bank of England is a private bank. It's not part of the government or anything else. It's a private bank. And it charges the government, which is us, well, on behalf of us, charges interest on the money it creates, which is crazy. And it says, and it's written as if you're a 5-year-old rather than a 10-year-old. The Bank of England is the UK's central bank. It's not like a bank on your high street. It has special functions that help keep the economy and financial system stable. That affects us all. I think this was written just before 2007, because I don't think the current financial system is anything but stable. I almost swore there. It's basically that the current financial system has to collapse. You can't have an exponential money supply going up and up and up with interest, and it can't carry on. It is a mathematical certainty that it collapses. When, I can't say, but it has to collapse. But just going back a bit, and it says, the Bank of England, this is where the problem started. So we're sort of going back a little bit. And in this lovely little PDF that they put out on the website, it says, the Bank of England has been issuing banknotes for over 300 years. Early banknotes were receipts for gold deposited at the bank. Yeah, we knew that, didn't we? The holder of a banknote could bring it to the Bank of England and exchange it for gold. And then, without any explanation, the next sentence, it says, this is no longer possible. Well, why is it no longer possible? They stole all the gold. Well, that was our gold. That was the basis of what that currency was based on. It was backed by gold. However, it was actually set against silver. A pound was actually set against a Troy pound, not an imperial pound, a Troy pound in weight of sterling silver, which is why our currency is still called pound sterling. And now, if you buy an ounce of gold from a silversmith, they still use Troy ounces, which are slightly different from imperial ounces. So, what's happened is they've stolen our gold and given us paper. Now, what's really interesting is a lot of people recently have thought, well, I'm going to buy gold. So what they're doing, they're buying gold, and they're paying rental for their gold, and they get this lovely piece of paper telling them how much gold they've got. They're then thinking, oh, I think I'm going to get my gold. And so they go along to the sort of safe deposit and say, can I, look, piece of paper here? And they say, oh, no, you can't have your gold. We'll give you the monetary equivalent. And this is happening. So it's almost like they've fallen for it twice. So, can you see, the original money was supposed to be receipts for gold, so now people have been buying gold, and when they want their gold, they can't have it, because there's a shortage. But what have I been paying rent for? Yeah, sorry, I've got to calm down, seriously. And it's not like I've just found this out, but I just think it's so incredibly crazy. I really do. And I don't see why everyone hasn't suddenly realised it. I'm sure all you guys have, but yeah, it is mad. It is mad. So originally, money was promissory notes, wasn't it? What's a promissory note? It's an IOU. That's all it is. An IOU from one person to another. But what I've been saying so far about banks creating money out of nothing isn't true. Okay, so I've been lying to you for the last 15 minutes. Because it's actually, they can't create money without us. Because what they're dependent on is our promissory notes. So when we sign the application form or the bank loan, the form, the form for, the bank loan agreement, that is turned into a promissory note. And what they do, they swap their promissory notes for our promissory note. Now, if I had a Rolex, which, not that I really want one, but if I had a £10,000 Rolex, okay, and I took it to the bank and said, can I have £10,000, please? Here's my security, so that I promise that I'll pay it off. I could give that watch to the bank, get £10,000, and I pay it off, and I pay it with interest. I pay it with a little bit of compound interest. At the end of that, do I get the watch back, or does the bank keep the watch? Well, we should get the watch back if you've used it as collateral, as security. But what they're doing, they're using your promissory note as security. So once you pay the loan off, you can go back and say, can I have the original note? And this is something that Si Spaniard talks about. And it's something that we are now asking for in the letters. Because what we want is the original agreement back. Now the trouble is, the banks are very, very greedy, and what they do, they sell it on. And this is where the security, this is what securitisation is. It's what they do. They bag them all up together and flog them because they're worth something, because they can be more, it is so crazy. This is why the banks, when you default on your bank loan, the bank can't even be bothered to chase you for more than a few weeks, because it'll send you out a default notice and then flog it on for 10p in the pound or less. So because it's cheaper for them to go and lend out more, say lend, create more money by swapping their promissory notes for electronic currency, than it is to actually chase you for it. So that's why there's a whole industry called debt collectors, who are like the bottom feeders. They're at the bottom of the food chain, aren't they? So a Troy pound. They're jumping around a little bit today. So as I say, it's not the banks that create the money, it's actually us. Now this next one is interesting. I actually got the chance to ask some questions along with a group of people that were pretty switched on, called the truthers if you like. A friend of mine said, I've got a bank manager that's quite interesting. He knows a little bit about stuff, and he's actually done a degree in economics, and he's in his sort of early 30s or something, so he's relatively young compared to me, and he seemed to know quite a bit about banking and agreed with a lot of stuff that this guy was talking about. And so on the idea of promissory notes, this is what he said. Now, we had to muffle his voice because if his bank found out what he was saying, he'd lose his job. So we couldn't name his name, we couldn't name the bank or where he was from, and we had to disguise his voice before we could actually use it. But the words come up so that you will actually see it.
If I were to approach you,
by law, it
Can
has
you
to
read
be
that?
accepted. We can put it through that agreement.
So I don't. Can you hear that at the back? Because it is by law. It has. So the question was, what would happen if I came to the bank with a promissory note? Would you have to accept it? And he says, by law, it has to be accepted because we can put it through the Bank of England. But you try and get the bus home now and pay with stamps. That's what I would say. And then he goes on to say,
You try and get the bus home now and pay the stamps. That's what I would say.
So if we came into the bank with promissory note, we would accept it.
But we don't, we wouldn't.
That goes back to 1882,
I know.
It's changing.
You were saying you have to accept promissory note.
Right, by law, we do.
Yeah, of course we do.
what he's actually, we've got a bank manager actually saying that by law, they still have to accept promissory notes. These are sort of large corporations, not individuals, large corporations. And so if you want to get out of debt free, you can download promissory notes. It's not going to be easy. You're not going to be like, suddenly be able to pay off all your sort of like bank loans and things like that. However, we have had quite a few successes with people paying off generally utility bills. So, just as an aside, promissory notes, because banks use our promissory notes, because when you actually fill out that loan application, that is a promissory note. Sometimes they're actually called promissory notes. That original agreement is a promissory note. And there we have that's one that, I think you're going to have to get a new project. I'll tell you what I think it is, Andrew. I think it's the lead. You've got a poor quality lead and lots of leads, and I reckon if you had a decent lead, it'd probably come out because
Making notes.
making notes as you go along.
It's not the bank.
If you get a promissory note and take it to BC World, you get a new projector and a nice lead.
I know a faster enough from Druidy.
Excellent. So, that's a promissory. It did have nice background of sacred geometry and stuff in it, but you can't actually see it on the... I'm not complaining, it's can't see it that well. And there's a gas statement that total was over £3,000, payments none, account adjustments, that was after sending a promissory note. So it can work, but I wouldn't hold out on it. Okay, also with Monopoly is you don't actually get on the board yourself and play the game, do you? It's only Twister we actually get on the board itself, okay? And I won't ask if anyone's played Twister here. You won, but with the global financial system, we also have a token, and I'm sure that everyone here understands what that is. And when you see your name in capital letters, or you say your name with a title, knowing that in a banking dictionary, title is about ownership, you realise that and this isn't something I could talk just on this area itself, but you realise that the belief is that when our birth certificate is created and we are registered, our title is handed from our parents, who would have been our sort of carers. It's actually handed to the government. So when you register something, like when you register your car, you hand the title to the government and you become the registered keeper rather than the owner, which is why they can take it back off you and crush it if they want to. And when you look at the back of a credit card, it says authorised signature. So who are you authorising? You can't authorise yourself, can you? Because you are yourself, unless there's actually something else going on. So there's a great little video called the straw man. Is everyone aware of the whole straw man principle here? Yeah. Anyone not? So there's a few of you. It's complex and it's sort of smoke and mirrors, but do have a look at. There's a very good documentary coming out, which is the same people that gave you the one on mobile phones, which was resonance being a frequency. They're also now doing a one called Straw Man, the Nature of the Cage. And it's one that, if you're a regular truth juicer, you'll recognise a few of the people in it. So there's Darren Diogi, Dave Murphy, myself, and a few others that have been challenging this sort of stuff. So, and it explains a little bit more detail about that. It's called Straw Man, the Nature of the Cage. And at the moment you can watch a 5-minute sort of, what's it called? Trailer, that's the word. Sorry, my brain's not working today.
Sorry, what was the first one you referred to? I don't know.
The other one was resonance being a frequency. That's about mobile phones and Schumann resonance and bees and quite how scary mobile phones and mobile masts are. It's an absolutely brilliant documentary. Because what it is, it's a friend of mine who's he's actually worked in the industry, but he's woken up like so many other people, and now he's actually working for next to nothing, producing really good documentaries that blow people away, which are the sort of TV sort of quality, very good quality stuff. But it's amazing the number of people that are waking up at all different levels. And the other one was the Meet Your Straw Man, which is a really quick, short one on you'll find on YouTube. But just talking about, do you feel that this is what we asked what we call the banking insider, but the friendly bank manager that we met, we asked him, is there any significance to the title? And this is what he said.
Do you feel that there is any significance in the title?
There is, and the fact, I suppose, the fact that you have a title on your record as such, and when contracts are drawn up, obviously your customer names has to have a title, as opposed to general correspondence where you can change it to.
Do you know what my comprehension or understanding of that is? And there's probably a few people around the table, is that is referring to a corporate fiction and not the blood living being. You are a corporate entity. Yeah. So you accept that.
So there you've got a bank manager accepting that the title refers to a corporate fiction, which is like a company is a corporate fiction. But what they're doing, they are creating corporate fictions of us as a way of separating us from ourselves, which is just a very clever way of creating. It helps us in some ways as well. It helps us walk away from our debts if we're aware of it. But if you're not aware of it, it can be a bit frightening. So, but as I say, that's something that if you're not aware of, perhaps it's something that goes into you can go into some sort of depth with it. The other thing about monopoly, this is great, is that if you read the rules of monopoly, it actually says the bank never goes broke. Because if the banker in a game of monopoly runs out of paper notes, what it says that the banker may issue as much as is needed by writing on any ordinary paper. So, just in real life, where the banks don't go, where RBS get bailed out by us, the non-profit making bit is pulled to one side, just leaving the profitable bit, and then they still go after people and close down their businesses so they can go for their assets. I mean, it's naughty, it really is. And then some kids playing Monopoly say, what do you mean you need a bailout? But that's what happens in Monopoly, that's what happens in real life. And the more I looked at the game of Monopoly, I thought this is perfect for explaining what's going on with the current financial system. And of course, just like the game of Monopoly, you stand a better chance of winning if you actually know the rules. And so, the website Get Out of Debt Free, the way it came about, because I haven't actually mentioned how it came about. Obviously, I mentioned that I was broken, I was being chased by debt collectors, and it was in the times of when it was only Nexus magazine. There was no YouTube videos or anything like that. Well, no, by that time the internet was up, but YouTube wasn't up, so there's no videos. But what had happened is a lady by the name of Mary Elizabeth Croft. Has anyone come across her? Yeah, there's a few people that have, obviously, some of the people that be coming in. No, she's very much alive. It was a guy from our website that died, one of the guys one of the really capable guys that was helping us with new letters and new ways of dealing with courts. But we're going to continue that work with the website. But Mary Elizabeth Croft, she wrote a book, a spiritual economics book, called How I Clobbered Every Cash Confiscatory Bureau Known to Man in brackets, a spiritual economics guide. And it's over 100 pages, and it's an e-book. You can actually buy it as a physical book. And I was looking for, at the time of me, I sort of woke up to the truth, but at the same time of waking up to the truth, I woke up on another level, probably, and this is where words are very, very difficult, because it's a very personal thing, but my relationship with, let's just say that my relationship with the universe altered somewhat. I realised I was somehow more than just this, and I started meditating and doing strange things and going off and going to sacred sites and feeling a connection with the land. And that's when I realised that there was something more profound going on. And when I started reading her book, I realised that she was actually, she'd read a book called A Course in Miracles, which is a very, very powerful book. And she had woken up to basically the fact that the banking system is a complete scam. And she also said that if you've got any personal debt, what you can do, you can ask the banks for this, this and this, and if they can't pay, if they can't give you that information, then you say, well, I'm quite happy to pay you off, pay you back as if they lent you anything. But if you can't, give us the following information, then, I presume the debt's already paid off, or that, I don't owe you anything in the first place. And this is basically what he did. So I thought, fantastic, I've got all, I've got the information. What I did, I googled Mary Elizabeth Croft. This is about 2007, 2006, 2007. And I couldn't believe it. I googled Mary Elizabeth Croft template letters, thinking that loads would come up, nothing. Nobody had actually created template letters based on this book. And so what I did, I read the book twice. The third time taking notes, really got it in my head, and then created the template letters. And then about a year later, I think I'm really going to be putting these, a little voice kept saying, you're going to put these on the internet. And so what I did, I put them actually up on the internet, and as soon as I put them up on the internet, then people started going to the site. And, and then I sort of started taking donations, then I put a forum up, and then people started, it just looked like, it really has grown. Now we're actually getting anything between 3,000 and 7,000 hits. That's individual hits a day. And we get somebody sign up about every 10 to 15 minutes. And that goes through the night as well, because we're now covering, we've now got statutes for 7 different countries. So it's quite remarkable. It's not something I just thought, oh right, I'll set up a website that's going to get people out of debt. It all just happened, one step at a time. We're actually redesigning the site at the moment so that it's far more, it's now going to look like a consumer site rather than a truther site. And it's going to say, oh, are you in debt, or you having problems with this? And of course we'll get them on the forum, and then they find out about everything, health and free energy and all this sort of stuff. So it's a good way of converting people. They come in thinking they've got debt problems, and then they realise they sort of wake up to all sorts of other things that I'm sure you guys are aware of. So, but anyway, I digress. Being in debt is one of the consequences of playing the game, and that's obviously why the government's in debt. But it is only a game, and I think we're very, very close to it all having to go back in the box. Because, as I said, we're very, very close to the fact that the whole system is about to collapse. It can't carry on. You can't have exponential growth going on forever. That's the purchasing power. I can't actually see it starts off, it's a graph going down and down from 1700 to year 2000 is just the amount of purchasing power of the pound going down and down. You can see that one quite clearly. This is a great one. This is from 1969 to 2009, and this is the Bank of England balance sheet. It's basically, the top line is the debt, the bottom line is the money supply. Now, unless they suddenly change, unless one goes higher than the other, at this point we cannot pay that off. There's no way, because and as I say, it's either I'm about future stuff and this and that and other sort of, try not to say bollocks, but if the debt is greater than the money supply, how can it be paid off? That's the problem. Yeah, I'll take your point, yeah?
Okay, so that was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
The lines would have crossed by now?
No, they haven't. That was a blip on the top.
Oh, so that's still there.
Yes, yeah. I will be taking questions at the end. I sometimes struggle. I'm a bit deaf in one ear, so I struggle to take questions. But
What are the two lines then?
sorry, the top line is the debt, and the bottom line is the money supply. And there was a bit in 2009. There was a bit of a wobble, but then it sort of like, I think it was just and it sort of went up and down. So hang on, I'm jumping around a little bit now. So, here we go, and this was from the, I think this was from the Independent, and this was last week, and it actually shows that Britain's personal debt is 1.43 trillion, and hang on, can I just see, because I've actually got the updated one. Well, I'm now reckoning on my little app, it's now 1.47. So that was a week ago. So it's going up at an alarming rate. So as I say, their plan was take you for every penny you've got, and our plan was to stop them. So how do we win the game? What can we do? So what I'm going to do is, I don't want to go into any great detail because we're going to stop for a break in 5 or 10 minutes and have a cup of tea or a beer or something. But, so I'm just going to give you a brief overview of how the website works and what we ask for. So, and a lovely quote that I came across was, the secret to winning the game for everyone is to assume a deficiency of love in your opponent and apply some. So, you don't have to throw your arms around the debt collectors and the bankers, but perhaps what you can do is, when a debt collector phones up, treat them with respect and dignity. It's the least we can do. They're caught up in it as much as we are. Just because they're on one end of the phone and we're on the other end of the phone, try not to swear at them. They can be rather annoying. Sarcasm, I'm quite happy with that. That worked brilliantly. Yeah. A great one is when the debt collector phoned up and said, "Oh, thank you for paying off my debt." Because of course they bought your debt from the bank. This is nothing to ask the bank manager. Because if they buy your debt, so is anyone? No, I'm not going to ask anyone if they've got a debt at the moment. But if you had an overdraft for £1,000, and I went to your bank and paid it off for you, you wouldn't owe anything, would you? Now, if I did it for everyone in the room and I got a discount, then none of you would owe anything. So if I'm a debt collector and I've bought your debt, what is the difference? So now, when the debt collectors phone up and actually saying, look, that Jon Witterick, answer some security questions. Before I do that, I just thank them for buying the debt, because it's under the Bill of Exchange Act, they've discharged my obligation to pay it back.
So you don't have to pay back the debt collector?
I don't think so. No. That's what we feel on. I mean, we ask them. We're sort of like saying, I am more than happy to pay you off, and this is what the letters say. I'm more than happy to pay you off if you can prove that we have a valid contract, if you can prove that there was something of value which you lent me in the first place, and that you didn't create it out of nothing. I'm more than happy to pay you back. But I want this, 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 and this. And if you don't give this, this, and this, and this, then we're going to be in agreement that there was no debt in the first place, or it's been paid off. And that's basically the crux of the letters on the website. So, it's quite nice. What I do say is respect authority. Okay? Where's Andy? He's gone now. Don't worry. I just wanted his response to that one. But, the only authority you have is that little voice inside you. Okay? There is no external authority. You are your authority. What what the government has done, it's actually taken away our authority from ourselves. Because, you know, the whole point is that the government is now treating us like children. They're telling us what we can and can't do. They tell us what we can and can't eat. And that advice isn't even in line with what is actually good for you and what isn't good for you. They tell us things that are good for us that really aren't good for us. You know, like aspartame, you know, we've got to have like diet stuff, you know, and like poison ourselves slowly. The only authority you have is that little voice, and it tends to come from here and not here. If it's coming from your head, don't listen to it. When it comes from your heart, that's my personal experience, and that's something I just wanted to share.
So, some Greek philosopher said that authority is not without head.
Is not, sorry?
Authority is not without head.
Is not without head. You know, Darren Diogen would just say that authority is the who's writing the story. And so if we're going to write our own story, then we take the story back and make it our story. Because every one of us has got a different story. So it's just taking back our own story. That's Mary Elizabeth Croft. See, I'm actually jumping well around my slides, jumping ahead slightly. And what was lovely is that, it's going to be just over a month ago, I actually had an email from her, and she was actually thanking me for getting all these links to her ebook, because now what's really embarrassing is now if you Google Mary Elizabeth Croft, it comes up with Get Out Debt Free First, and but on the front of the website we say this site would not be possible without the amazing work of Mary Elizabeth Croft, who we all owe a great debt of gratitude. And she actually contacted me, and I thanked her for, which is lovely that we actually connected. So just really quickly, just before we have a break, what we say is, if you've got a debt, make sure you keep, say if you've got a current account and a savings account, and you default on the current account, or you've got a current account, a debt and a credit card, and you default on the credit card, if you've got money in the other account, in the savings account, or if you've got money in the credit in the current account, they will steal from one to pay the other off. So you have to separate. If you're going to default on an account, you have to separate it and put all your money in get another bank account and put it somewhere else. It's called setting off, or it's called stealing. So, yeah. They come up with lovely words for theft. And never speak to your creditors on the telephone unless you're recording them. Otherwise, they'll say that you agreed to this, that, and the other. And so, just make sure you always record them. A lot of these smartphones now have got ways of recording. If not, and you can actually hold it to a landline and record both ends of the conversation as well. So, worth knowing. Do not, under any circumstances, offer to pay anything, and don't get worried, scared, or intimidated, as I did. It's difficult when you're starting out, but the more you learn about what's going on, the more it empowers you, and the stronger you actually get. A really easy way of dealing with them is with a little sticker, or you can just plaster it in black felt pen across it. It's just write, addressee not recognised, return to sender. Now, the reason the addressee is not recognised, because it'll either be in capital letters or it'll say Mr. and Mrs. and that'll be referring to your corporate fiction or straw man or fictional entity and not you. So you're in your right without lying, because we want to be honourable, we want to be truthful, and we want to be lawful all the way through. We're trying to set an example to these people, not continue the fraud. So we're saying we're not recognising what's written on the envelope. Debt collectors buy the debt, as I've already said, for about 10p in the pound. So just be aware of that and thank them for paying your debts off. So cool.
And
thereby discharging your debt under the terms of the Bills of Exchange Act.
And your student loans then.
And student loans, yes, because they've just got what, $1 billion worth of. I mean, they're students. I mean, would you lend money to a student? Seriously, you know. Not lend money. Would you create money and expect it back from a student? No, nothing against students, but I was one, and I know what I was like. Yes. But the thing is, when I was a student, I actually had a grant, and I actually had money. And, you know, if you ate hardly anything in the week, you had enough to get pissed at the weekends, you know. But I actually, at the end of it, we were actually able to come out without huge debts. You know, a bit of an overdraft, perhaps, but not huge, you know, something that you pay it off within a couple of months of work in the summer, you pay it off. Now, you've got people that are just in debt, which are, you know, they're starting you off in debt. And in this current climate where you've got graduates getting jobs in, not there's any problem working McDonald's, but you'd think as a graduate, you know, they'd be looking for positions where they could actually use the actual information that they've learned. So another thing is don't offer to pay anything. What debt collectors do is they say, well, what can you afford? And you say, oh, about £1 a month. And they'll go, and they will agree to it. And the reason why they will agree to it is because as soon as you agree to give them anything, what you've done, you've actually got a verbal contract with them that you owe them money. Up until that point, they're just an interloper. And we actually have on the letters, we don't actually bother putting their names on, we just say, dear interloper, because they're a third-party interloper in law. It's like if one of you came along and said, look, I bought your debt off this guy. I met this guy in the pub, and he said, you owe him a tenner, so I've just bought that for a couple of quid. So you owe me a tenner. I go, forget it. You're nothing to do. I haven't got a contract with you. But if you say, well, yes, I'll pay you off £1 a week, then you're agreeing to the debt effectively. Yeah? So, always ask for an invoice. Ask for it in your name. That is, my name is Jonathan of the family Witterick. That's my full name. It's not Mr. and it's not in capital letters. I'm actually looking to phone up DVLA and actually try and change it from Mr. to King. Because I thought King John would sound really good. Because Mr. is quite a lowly title, and I want something that's going to reflect being a sovereign being, and I want something that's going to reflect my sovereignty. So I thought King would actually work. King John would be quite nice, because you'd be able to book me King John.
It's a spare title, once, please.
So again.
It's a vacant title.
Vacant title, yeah, that's right, yeah.
You're forced to make it commercial, yeah.
Yeah, could do. But King John was not a good man, apparently, yeah, so never mind. Well, I think TPUC John's already done that, hasn't he? He said he was going to be King of England.
Oh, I thought he was going to the universe.
Right, okay, never mind.
He's on Pinkerton.
Yes. As we all are, I'm sure, at some level. Ask for debt collectors a proof of agency and give them 10 days to respond. And we're also asking now for a few other things. We're asking for the deed of assignment, asking debt collectors for the deed of assignment, and that's something that they should be able to give us, and they never can. So that's a brilliant one. We are using little bits of statute law now, which means that if it goes to court, you've got something that you can actually hold on to. And that's something we've had 25 cases on the website, we've been counting now, where debt collectors have been using statutory demands as a way of collecting money. And what we now is actually patting them out, and so they don't get anywhere near court. So that's actually really quite exciting. I realise I'm going a little bit over time now, so I'm going to try and hurry up. Don't know what that one was. It was obviously, I think that was a video, but I haven't really got time for that. If they do respond within 10 days, if they don't respond, then basically you agree to the fact that you don't owe them anything, or the debt's being paid. Any negative remarks to a credit scoring agency will be removed, and they'll no longer pursue you. Credit scoring agency, you might have to challenge that. You might have to get onto them and say, look, They couldn't prove the debt, they couldn't give us the deed of assignment, so therefore, can you remove these marks from the credit scoring agency? And then, if they continue to, the other thing you say, and if you continue to contact me, or by phone or by letter, then I'm going to start charging you. And my cost is 3 times what you're claiming, plus £1,000 per hour or part thereof, and £1,000 per recorded delivery every time I have to send something to you. Try and keep the whole bill down to about £5,000, because then you can go through the small claims and actually chase them. So, it's good fun. Remember, anything they can do, we can do. It's that sovereignty thing, stepping into your power. And then you send them, that's an invoice. If you send them an invoice. General rules, always be truthful, respond politely, always act honourably, lawfully, and don't be greedy. Now, with what I know, I could quite easily go out and get lots of credit cards and run up loads of money on each one and do lots of scams and probably have a Porsche and replace my poor little V-Dub Polo. However, as soon as I start doing that, I'm into the greed thing and I'm into the more, and if I want lots of external things, then there's obviously something missing deep inside of me, and I'm working on trying to work out, come to actually terms with myself and help other people out. Yes, if you need to feed your family, go out and get a credit card, but as long as you're not greedy, because otherwise we end up behaving a little bit like the bankers and the politicians. And we don't need greed, we don't need more and more. If we're going to do it, at least we do something honestly. So if you need to feed it, I've used credit cards to live on when I had no other way of supporting myself. But as soon as I did, then I sort of but remember, we are creating that money anyway. So, don't worry about it. Oh, and this was from The Guardian. It said, debt collectors hit out an advice website. This was back in 2009. The website had only been up a year when the debt collectors tried to have it removed from the internet, along with Legal Beagles and Consumer Action Group and Penalty Charge Board, because it was costing them a lot of money. And what was funny is on the day that this hit The Guardian, the guy that does my website, he phoned up and said, the stacks are going through the roof. The server almost went down because people started hitting the website. What they'd done, they'd put links, they'd written the names of the website, but they'd put hyperlinks straight to the site. Now, The Guardian is a top 10 UK site, which means it's huge traffic. Now, I was languishing, the website Get Out Debt Free was languishing on about page 4 or 5 of Google for debt, and stuff like that. And then as soon as this came up, our Google rankings went right through the roof. We ended up within a few days on page 1, and within a couple of weeks of that, we actually overtook the government website for most of the debt-related search terms, and we're still there, and we're getting more and more traffic. What we're now seeing are things like this. This was seen in, I don't know if you can see that, this was on a sea wall in Brighton, where I have no idea who it was, and I think they should be absolutely ashamed. They've written in chalk in great big letters, get out of debtfree.org, which is great. I have no idea who that was. So it's great that the word is spreading, and I just feel thankful that I read Mary Elizabeth Cott's book in the first place and was actually able to share her information with everyone. I think that's a good time for a short break, and we're back in about 20 minutes. Well, we're looking at future ideas for countries. Thank you.
And let's say hello, Jon Witterick, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so rather than sort of focusing, I think it probably goes down a little bit louder. Rather than focusing on what the problems are, because you've noticed with me, I get a little bit, I think it's good. I get a little bit because when you're looking at how fraudulent it is and how they're stealing they're stealing our property from us, they're stealing our work from us, and they're keeping us in this little hamster cage, you know, running on that wheel the whole time. And the people that come up to me, you know, after talks that are most full of fear are the ones with the most money, because they spent a lifetime working and, you know, making themselves comfortable. And I'm saying, well, the whole system has to crash. Mathematically, it has to crash. And so what I'm going to do in this half is now look at the options available to us of what we can use instead of this debt-based currency now. So I'll be looking at that. Also, last year, I had the wonderful opportunity of meeting Michael Tellinger, and actually, a day before his talk, actually spent some time with him, with a group of people, and it was quite remarkable that the really strange things were going on. Because a few of us just put word out, so I took a few mates along, and it happened that there were 18 people there. There were 9 women and 9 guys, including Michael. And we actually met at the only place we could meet was actually the town hall in Glastonbury. And it's right next to the Glastonbury Abbey, and it's on a really powerful ley line. And what we did, we're talking about all sorts of stuff. He's talking about his Ubuntu sort of stuff as well. But also, after the next day, he did a great talk, and he's a wonderful, wonderful speaker. And what happened, at the end of the talk, the girl came up and said, oh, we've opened a portal right actually in Glastonbury Abbey, which is some, you know, earth energy sort of, I don't know, I'm not really up on it, but we opened this portal because what we were doing, we were putting out some really powerful sort of positive intentions, and we did a few sort of ohms and a bit of chanting, and our collective consciousness actually shifted this, whatever it is. It's outside my sort of understanding a little bit, but it's really exciting. When people come together with positive intent, it's incredible, the energy. It's like the energy in the room when we're all really positive and thinking about positive things. It's really, really powerful. And that's why not only I look at the problem, but I try not to focus on the problem. And a lot of you are asking me sort of questions about, well, what should I do if you've got a mortgage or this? I don't get too involved with the sort of nuts and bolts of it. I look at the overview of it. There are people far better than me on the website, on forums. People like Si Spaniard. There's a website called Void Mortgage, very, very good at dealing with the nuts and bolts. But what I'm actually doing now is looking at options. And one of those options is, and I'll talk about it in a little bit, but even things like, we're actually been setting up little communities. We've done some experiments where we go off for a sort of like just 10 days or so, where we go off into woodland and sort of like create food and kitchens and composting toilets and talk about free energy and stuff like that. Because if we make their system redundant by going off and having our own little, we don't want to play your game anymore, we're going to play our own little games, and, you know, sustainable ways of living sustainably so that their system is redundant. So rather than fight their system, we can actually make their system redundant, because as Charles Eisenstein, who I'll talk about in a minute, he said, they are no longer relevant to us. They've got this system and we can actually step outside. Now it's difficult to step outside the system because, yeah, most of us have to pay income tax and council tax. I personally don't, because I've sort of... Sorry?
You don't have to.
You don't have to, no. You're contracted to.
Yes.
They are pretty good at persuading us to pay these things. But when you actually say, can I see the law, and can you explain? Si Spaniard's done a wonderful video. Do go to YouTube and look at his videos, because they are absolutely brilliant. Si Spaniard, he set up White Rabbit Education, and I've done talks with him, and we support each other's work. He's absolutely brilliant. He's actually an ex-Coots bank manager. He's also worked in debt recovery, and so before he woke up and grew his hair long. So, but he's a very, very clever guy. and worth looking at. And so if you need specifics to deal with court cases and stuff like that, do get onto his stuff. So I'm just looking at what's going on in the news, and this was one that a slide I showed earlier. The debt is just ridiculous now. It cannot be paid off. I think we sort of realised that from the last half of the talk that I did. I'm going to have to shoot because we're running a little bit over time now, so I'm only going to be sort of like trying to wrap this up in about 30 to 40 minutes. Bank of England pressed to increase quantitative easing as confidence sags. This is the whole thing, back to the marbles, where they're just increasing the supply, they're increasing the monetary supply, purely because, now, it's not just one lot, they're now constantly doing it. So, effectively, they're increasing the monetary supply just exponentially, which means it's going off the graph. And can you remember that graph I showed where it looked like that it had come to a peak and was going back down? That's because that was the peak here. Sorry if I'm going at your shop. That was the peak there. And can you see in 2000, that was the little peak on 2009. This is 1830, and that's the 2008 blip. And can you see where the Bank of England monetary supply is just going, it's just spiking now. And there's a little dip there, but then it's just going to go straight up. We're in a situation where the financial system is out of control and it will crash. Now, it sounds quite frightening, we were talking about this, whether we can, we've got to have a new idea. And what I'm going to do is look at some of the things that are available to us now. Ultimately, I feel that, and something that Charles Eisenstein and Michael Tellinger talk about, is transitioning to a gifting culture. Because if we all realise that we are one, and the most important things that we have in our life, like air, whether it's that fresh, with stuff that they're allegedly spraying on us, and our water, but the most important things in life are free. And it's only the corporations that try and put a price tag on everything. And that is purely to control us and keep us keep us under control. And then we've got a lovely little cartoon of like the debt ceiling. Got a problem, we've hit the ceiling. And it's so true. And as I say, at the end of the day, it has to go back in the box. Because the game, Monopoly can't go on forever and ever and ever. If all the money's going one way, at some point we run out. And we're getting very, very close to that situation now. And a wonderful guy, George Carlin, he actually says, just because you got the monkey off your back doesn't mean the circus has left town. Which I think is beautiful, beautiful. Because, we might be able to solve our own problems, but at the end of the day, it's still there. So, just looking at what alternatives are actually available to us now, and ways that we can actually, even if we just make a small, just change one, a couple of things in our lives that can start getting us away from this debt-based currency, which is I think is the problem behind all the problems in the world. All the problems in the world, if you trace it back a little bit, it all comes back at some point to money. And whether it's law, whether it's the fact that we've got the land polluted, we've got the water polluted, the seas are polluted, the air is polluted. It all comes back to money. So we've got to think first of all, what is money? Well, it's a medium of exchange. It's a way we can exchange our labour or services or actual physical things. We can exchange them. It's a unit of account and it's a store of value. So let's look at different ways that we can actually, different options that we've got now. And one of them, quite obviously, have anyone come across the LETS scheme? Local Exchange Trading Systems. Now, there's a website called Let's Link UK, and it's basically community-based mutual aid networks. So it's a way that now, and there's probably a local one around here, where you can actually exchange your services, whether it's babysitting, whether it's fixing cars, whether it's gardening, and rather than using money, you can actually use this Let's system. And it's really good certainly in deprived areas where there's high unemployment and people are basically short of debt-based currency. It's a way of getting people together and working in the community. And it's a great way of getting projects to get up together as well. Self-funding, because all it needs are people. There are a lot of people that aren't working at the moment. And if they're not working, that means they've got a lot of labour that they can actually give to the community and be able to exchange with other people for their labour. And that's what money was originally for, but money is stopping us doing that. It's working in the opposite. Another thing is time banking, very similar to the Let's system. And time banking is another, there's a Time Banking UK, it's an umbrella organisation, and there's over 250 time banks across the UK at the moment, and they're still looking at local communities and a way of getting labour, getting people together and working on local projects and solving what we're going to do. There are so many jobs and ideas that need doing. There's pieces of land that are just decaying when they could be growing vegetables, and it's trying to get people together to actually come together and actually do these things. So timebanking.org, if anyone's sort of making notes and wants to write it down, and it's really bringing together resources so that people can work together to actually solve problems at a local level. Timebanking.org, yeah. And then, of course, this is something that Andy was talking about earlier. There's another thing. Bitcoin actually overtook PayPal last month for the amount of transactions. Not for the number of transactions, which PayPal, but because PayPal transactions are quite small, and some of the Bitcoin transactions are huge, Bitcoin's actually, it's been going through the roof. I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of Bitcoin. Basically, it's a digital currency. It's based on open source software, and there's no centralised control of it. Whereas PayPal and most banks have got centralised computers which control everything. With Bitcoin, basically, when you download the program, it's on your computer, and you have all that information basically goes down onto your computer. As far as I understand, it has not been hacked because it's pretty well unhackable. What has been hacked are I think you're shaking your head there. What has been hacked are the wallets. Yeah. And the wallets have been hacked big time. And there's been a few sort of quite serious sort of hacking where people have got away with loads of money. Somebody that you might have come across, so yeah, Bitcoin, peer-to-peer transaction. The problem with Bitcoin is people aren't using it to trade, they're using it as somewhere to take their debt-based currency and put it somewhere safe. And Cyprus, when they were getting their money stolen from their bank accounts in Cyprus, that was a huge impetus where a lot of that money was going into Bitcoin. And Bitcoin's been a little bit up and down, where it's gone like through the ceiling, it then crashed, it then bounced back, and now it's higher. It's at an all-time high, I believe, at the moment.
$893. Now we're going to buy 100 of them in 23 months ago.
Yeah.
At 83p.
Yeah. There was some guy in Sweden who had a few grand's worth a few years ago, and he thought, somewhere, I've got this. So he sort of looked up on his computer, saw what it was worth. It was worth something like $850,000 worth of Bitcoin. So it's crazy. But it's not being used as a currency. It's being used as a safe haven, I think, more so. But
It's money laundering as well.
Yes.
it is money laundering as well.
Take
Yeah,
it as
yeah. There is that aspect of it. So, someone else, I'm sure a few of you have come across Roger Hayes. Yeah, British Constitution Group. I know him. He's looking at the lawful bank, which is an interesting idea. I'm not 100% taken on it because unfortunately they've still got, well, it's called Alternative Monetary System, TAMS. It's independent, but I feel it's still a little bit centralised and they're still able to fractionally reserve it, which I'm a little bit uncomfortable with because I think we've got to go, for me, ultimately, I think we should all be able to live in a community where we all come together and work for each other, for the benefit of everyone. And that's, a true gifting economy, which Michael Tellinger and Charles Eisenstein talks about. But I think we might need a stepping stone, and whether we were having this conversation earlier, whether we can do it in one big leap and go to a gifting economy, I don't know. I think a lot of people are still sort of like thinking about, oh, it's not fair. I don't know if our consciousness is at a level where we can all just immediately go from money to going completely money free and actually come together. What we do have to look at is there is a shift in consciousness. The fact that people are waking up, the fact that you've all come here tonight when you could be sort of like staying home nice and warm, is the fact that people are waking up to what's going on. 10 years ago, well, I started doing talks about 6 or 7 years ago, and I used to have to go to busy pubs to do my talks to people that hadn't even turned up to listen to a talk. And I'd stand at the front talking about 9/11 or 7/7, and everyone would basically take the piss because they weren't really ready for it. I mean, but now I can actually go and people turn up to listen to what I've got to say, which I think is wonderful. And there's a big shift. And I don't feel we have to wake up everyone because there's that 100th monkey effect where you get a shift in consciousness where they talk about waking up 2% of the population, and if we get 2% of the population waking up to what's going on, suddenly everyone will wake up. And so I think we're gradually getting to that point. And the way I think of it is like this morning, at about 5 o'clock this morning, I don't know about you, but I was fast asleep. At 6 o'clock, I might have woken up for a minute and thought, oh no, it's still not light yet, gone back to sleep yet. But by 7:30, I was pretty well, decided that I was going to, woken up and get out of bed. There'd be people that have slept until 10 o'clock this morning if they didn't have work or anything. But it's almost like it's a cycle of consciousness. It's almost there's an alarm clock that's going off within us, waking up to the fraud and the stupidity of what's going on. And I think that's a natural cycle of consciousness that perhaps the Mayans were involved with. But then I digress once again. Another organisation looking at dealing with problems of the current financial system is Positive Money. Now, I'm sure a lot of you might have heard from them. They are very well funded, which always makes me a little bit nervous when people have lots of money. Because they're talking about taking away the monetary creation from the banks, which I think is brilliant, because they have focused what the problem is perfectly. They understand what the problem is. However, their solution is giving it to the Bank of England, which for me, that's really, really scary. The Bank of England is the heart of the problem. It's like taking the keys to the hen house and giving it to the biggest fox. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. And they don't talk about debt forgiveness either. They do really good videos on what the problem is. But I would actually go as far as saying I think they're probably controlled opposition. I really don't know. I would love to challenge somebody from Positive Money. I've done talks where Positive Money have actually been there and been side to side with them. They start confused. What I try and do is keep things really, really simple and don't confuse the issue. They start talking about complex financial issues, which I think forget all that. Let's keep it really simple. And so I'm not that, I'm not that positive about Positive Money. And of course, they're still able to inflate the economy. And I think that's one of the problems, because as soon as you inflate anything, you're taking away the value of what people have already got. Now, something I have been involved with is this TLC. I'm actually a director of the Tribal Love Society Cooperative. Okay, we only have little festivals of about 200 or 300 people in a field around Glastonbury. But because I was there and I organised one of the talk spaces when they were having a meeting, and somebody said, "Oh right, put them forward for a director." There's no money in it or anything. Any money that we do make goes back into festivals, and ultimately we want to actually buy land, a piece of land, so we can have regular festivals on it. But we are actually talking about having our own currency on site for the duration of the festival. So that's something that we are looking at. And unspent tokens get invested back into the land. So that's another idea. What I find has been going on right under our noses, and a new way of doing things, is open source. I mentioned open source, but anyone who uses Firefox as a browser here? Good. There's quite a few of you. Now, Firefox is wonderful because unlike Internet Explorer, it's not like one company that's created it and then sells it and makes money out of it. It's people coming together. They've only got a very small number of paid employees that oversee the whole situation, and it's open source, which means they share everything. So that the code, if you're a programmer, you understand the code, you can have a look at the code. And so it's lots of people coming together, and there's loads of open source software now. And I see this as a big shift, and it's not really talked about much. But I think this is a fundamental shift in the way we do business. There is now open source hardware, and this is actually a little synthesizer, because I like messing around making sort of music and fiddling about with stuff, and I've actually bought the circuit boards for this. You can't buy this ready-made, or you can buy it ready-made, you can buy it off certain people who already make them for you, but the great thing is that if you want this little synthesizer, it's a pretty well state-of-the-art little synth, you can put a keyboard on it, or I'm going to plug my bass guitar into it and play about with it. But the thing is, they've designed it, and they've made the components available, and they've made the circuit boards available. But if you want to go and build it yourself, you can take all the information and make your own circuit boards, buy your own. Basically, they've said, here it is, it's free, it's yours, you can do what you like with it. If you want to buy it from us, and because they're doing that, there's an awful lot of people interested in it and involved with it. And then more people then develop it and work on new ideas. So what it's doing, in the past, if somebody had a good idea, what they said, this is mine, I want a patent, and I'm going to make lots of money from it. Instead of saying, okay, I've come across this, I'm now going to share this with humanity for the good of all of us. So it's just a shift in the way we do things. Now, there's got to be a few people in the room that remember this band, Grateful Dead. Yeah, I'm not going to ask you to put your hands up. I remember them. What they were doing years ago, they were trying to get people to bootleg. Most bands would stop people recording their concerts because they wanted to sell their records. What Grateful Dead did, they said to all their fans, take the music, you can have it for free. go and play it to all your mates, and then that's how they got really big, not by going through the music industry, but by giving away their music for nothing. And now, with the internet, this is what bands are doing an awful lot more. They're giving away a few tracks, and now it's shifted the music industry. Whereas now it tends to be people doing festivals and playing live to actually make money, because the money isn't in selling CDs, anything. It's all downloaded. Even though obviously iTunes got a lot of that wrapped up. But let's just go through history and see things that have actually worked well. Now, at the Bilderberg gathering, or the little festival, I met this chap, Justin Walker. And what is funny is he's actually the nephew of the guy that set up Bilderberg. So he's very close to the guys that are probably at the heart of the beast, which is controlling the banking system. But this guy is, he seems pretty sound to me, because his uncle actually told him, it's almost like his uncle had second thoughts about what he's involved with Bilderberg, which is this secretive organisation, which has been where bankers and top industrialists meet up every year. And he told Justin to actually look into the Bradbury Pound, which is what he did. And what it was a government, whereas most promissory notes or most currency is actually created by central banks. This was actually created when the country was pretty well bankrupt during the First World War, back in 1915. And what it was government issued and debt-free. Because if the government issues it, then it can issue it without debt. So this was the Bradbury Pound, debt-free, government issued, and issued in 1914. And this would be a way of solving, if we wrote off our debt and had a government-backed, debt-free currency, and if it was controlled, then it would be a way of dealing with the current problem that we've got. Only that the government is fraudulent, but if we actually had a government that would, some sort of transparency, whereas at the moment, the Bank of England doesn't even show us the figures of what's going on. We can't even see. The Bank of England has never been audited, and neither has the Federal Reserve, because if they did, they'd all be hung from lampposts. Or hopefully, hopefully that wouldn't happen, and they'd be forgiven and see the errors of their ways. But it's the equivalent of the US greenback, which we created at the same similar sort of time. Now, what actually Justin did, we actually sent a letter to the Treasury Select Committee suggesting that we actually, of a way of actually dealing with the current economic problem, would be going back to the greenback. And they said, this was their response. I appreciate you taking the time to raise your ideas for reintroducing the Bradbury Pound. However, the committee has a full programme at present. We are currently conducting inquiries into quantitative easing and macro-prudential tools. Macro-prudential tools. You're going to go down to Halford. Oh, I'd like some macro-prudential tools. Oh, yes, second on the left, sir. You'll find them down there with the spanners. I mean, it's crazy. It's mad. As such, the Treasury Committee has no plans to look into this subject in the foreseeable future. And they've just missed out on the way of dealing with the problem, because they're not interested in solutions. They're interested in making the problem worse and worse and worse. And I really don't know what their end game is. I mean, you could be like Alex Jones and think that the financial system crashes, everyone starts rioting because there's no food, and the police get in, and we live in a police state. I don't know. That's not my reality. How it unfolds, I don't know. That's up to us, isn't it? I see a shifting consciousness and waking up people up. What is wonderful at the moment is I know a lot of police officers and people serving in the military who are waking up just like we are. And just because they're not here tonight, I've actually been on a white rabbit education course with a guy from Naval Intelligence who is on side, who knows what's going on. He also told me that my name's come up in some of the, one of the things he came across. He sort of gave us a nudge and a wink, which if it didn't do, and I'm sure a lot of other people in the room will be on the some of the watch lists as well, because they don't like people sort of talking about the truth. Now,
Can I throw something in there?
Yes, certainly, sir.
A prediction which we know, which we've made, the greenback is actually in the hemp industry coming back.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the hemp industry was closed down for a reason, but that's another big stuff. The Model T Ford was designed to run on hemp oil and had composite hemp body panels, which you could actually hit with a sledgehammer, and the sledgehammer would bounce off it. It was more advanced vehicle in some ways than the vehicles we've got now, which as soon as you bump into something, you only need a sort of a modern car. If it gets hit behind from another car at 10 miles an hour, very often it writes them off, because they're just designed to buckle, because it makes loads of money for the motor industry. Now, I come from the Channel Islands. I was originally born in Guernsey. And I came across this on the internet once, by chance, when I was looking up sort of like debt and money and things. And it was called the Guernsey experiment. And like the Bradbury pound, but this was quite remarkable because it changed Guernsey's fortunes long before the financial industry sort of like decided to use Guernsey as an offshore base. But the Guernsey experiment, what it was then during it was the end of the Napoleonic War. Just like any war, government's pretty well bankrupt, so the island of Guernsey was pretty well bankrupt because it had to build all these fortifications to keep the French out. So it had no money to build sea walls and a harbour and markets and things like that to actually, keep the sea. They didn't have a sea wall to actually keep the sea out. So at high tides, the sea would flood agricultural land, which obviously ruined the crops. So people were starving. The island was in a complete mess because it had been involved in a war that it wasn't even involved with. So the local government decided that they could create their own money. And this was called, and so they created their own promissory note. But they were bright enough to realise that if they just flooded the local economy with promissory notes, that would reduce the value of everyone else's savings. So anyone with savings or collateral, it would be reduced, as is at the moment with inflation. So what they did, they produced promissory notes with like an 18-month or a 2-year lifespan. Now, it was brilliant because they had loads of, basically Guernsey was built on granite, so they had building materials. They had lots of labour. They didn't have any money to pay people to move it about. So what it did, this enabled, it was amazing because they built a whole infrastructure around the island when they had no money. And the only thing that stopped it was a huge success. And even after they withdrew the currency, the economy was then, it was moving. People had money. And it was a huge success. The only thing that stopped it, the bankers got a little bit upset because they didn't have a stranglehold on the island. And they got onto the Privy Council, and the Privy Council, which is, the Queen, which is part of these, the Queen's, look it up on Google, it's a frightening setup. Privy Council got onto the bailiff, who was the Queen's representative, and actually got the government to stop doing it. Which just shows that there is a conspiracy of the banking system to keep a stranglehold when there are perfectly good alternatives. So looking for new models for a spiritual economy. Now, one of the first ones that came along was the resource-based economy. Can everyone remember watching Zeitgeist and Zeitgeist 2? When you suddenly had this guy with the Venus Project, where it's very, very interesting, and I think it was a brilliance of, what's his name, Jacques Fresco, came up with these brilliant ideas. And a lot of his stuff, and I really think he was a brilliant sort of visionary. But the trouble is, he had these ideas like this, which it looks like something out of Thunderbirds for anyone that can remember that, you know. And the trouble is, stuff like this would need so much centralisation of control and resources, and I feel that we've got to go away from that and actually not have anything left. But I mean, I don't know about living in that. Being living in like a bloody hotel, I don't know. I quite like the sea view, but I'm at my happiest when I'm sort of in nature and living in, you know, we were talking about, rather than going to supermarkets for our food, that if we had permaculture, and we were saying this earlier, if we had a good permaculture, you think, right, what am I going to eat tonight? And so you go and get a sort of knife, you go down to the veg garden and where you've got a permaculture and say, right, what's ready? Okay, well, it looks like we're going to have some potatoes, and there you go, we're going to have some lettuce, and you cut it there and then, and it hasn't been flown around the world, you haven't had to pay for it, and you just take it and cook it, and it's fresh, and it's full of vitamins and nutrition, you know. Whereas, so you're actually going back to the land, and I feel we have to do that. But as Charles Eisenstein says, those people that say that in future we're going to make do with less, yes, we're going to have to make do with less crap. We're going to have to make do with less shoddy, cheap goods that are built by children in China. And we're going to have to put up with a lot more things that are really important, like art, and, because people are going to be far more creative. And so we can let go of all the crap. I think we're completely addicted to this throwaway society of more. I think I've gone off. Can you still hear me? Yes. That's good. Okay. Oh, my batteries are gone. Oh, he's going to fiddle with my bottom again. Any excuse.
No, your battery hasn't gone.
Right, okay. That was an excuse. So, yeah, I mean, I love the ideas here. But I just feel a little bit uncomfortable. I've got it. Yeah, that's lovely. So, but what I'm saying, projects of this scale would just mean a centralisation of power and decision making. And I feel we're going to take that centralisation of power and decision making and come back down to a local level, so that we've got groups at a level, because it's that's made it go out of control.
What do you think of the resource-based economy, though? Forget the strict cities, because I like the support.
Yes, I like the idea of group. I love a lot of it. It's just that the conclusions they've come to aren't the ones that I've come to. I'm not saying right or wrong. And what they were talking about is actually using a computer to control the resources. Now, I think we've got a far better computer for controlling resources, is that if everyone does what they feel in their heart that they were designed to do, then everyone would be doing everything perfectly. Your body hasn't got a computer deciding what every cell does. Every cell knows what it's got to do, and it all comes together. And we think that we're all autonomous. What we don't realise is a field of consciousness which is very intelligent. This is what I feel. I might be talking rubbish. I feel there's an intelligent field of consciousness which has got everyone. We've all got a little piece of the jigsaw. And when we all come together with our individual pieces, I think we can create an amazing pictures and an amazing future. And I'm very, very positive about how the future unfolds. I'm not, even Alex Jones, I saw him speak at Bilderberg, and, he's very, very fear-based, and I don't like getting into that fear-based sort of thing. But even he said that ultimately he knows that we win, and, I still am going, aren't I? Yeah, can you hear me still? Yeah, it is coming. No, it's all right, Andy. Sorry, I'm just getting you on the runaround, that's all. It's going to go.
You want your button felt?
Yeah.
First time for
A long time, actually. Yeah, there we go. So, there's a few people that have written books on spiritual economics. Eric Butterworth, he's coming from it from a Christian, but a spiritual Christian perspective. There's another one called Danathira Das, who's coming at it from a Krishna, an Indian perspective, and Eileen Workman's another one. A good friend of mine, you might have come across, who's come across Colin Power here? Truthjuice Bristol. Yeah, he's very much involved with Truthjuice Bristol. He's come across a harmonic economy. Now, he's using this quite complex mathematics, which is based on sacred geometry. And he's talking about sustainable models of an economy based on this vortex maths, which I find very difficult to understand. I can go through it, and I used to teach maths for a while, but I struggle with this. It's quite complex. However, what it does, that's what I like, a nice picture. What it does, it doesn't just look at the setup and transactions and maintenance, but it also goes through the feedback, and then it goes through how to actually exit. Most vehicles are produced, and they sell a car, and the car runs, and then it dies. But you don't think about how do we pay for the fact that we've now got a big lump of metal which is decaying and needs recycling. And they don't factor that in at the front end. So it's a matter of factoring in all the costs, so the whole cycle, so it's the cycle of decay which goes through the whole vortex, if you like, is actually covered and makes it sustainable. Now, for me, there are two people, and I've mentioned their names already. One of them is Charles Eisenstein, and this is the book Sacred Economics. It's a wonderful book because he talks about gifting, the gifting economy. He's actually gifted this book to every one of us. You can gift back by making a donation, but it's available online for free. And then if you want to gift him back, you can make a donation to him. And Charles Eisenstein and Michael Tellinger, I feel, are the two sort of brightest lights for transitioning to a gifting economy. And this book I feel, is the Bible. He's gone into it in a lot more detail than Michael Tellinger. But I think both men are doing some amazing work. And I'm just looking at time. I'm going to have to speed up a little bit. But we've also got to think about our attitude towards money. Michael Tellinger will say that a lot of New Age people say, oh, there's nothing wrong with money. It's just an exchange of energy. There's nothing wrong with it, you know. However, if it was just bartering, the person with the most goods or the most of anything is going to be in a position of power and will be able to exploit other people. So in a gifting economy, that does not happen. But as I say, there's a level of consciousness that we've got to aspire to. And I'm sure some of you have come across another good friend of mine, Darren Diogi, who talks about our relationship with money and how it's clouded by... has anyone seen Darren? Has he done a talk up here? Yeah. He's a wonderful, wonderful man who's looking into the words. He's doing, you can get it on YouTube. He actually talks about the words around money, like charging and change. The only change isn't something you get back when you give them a note and they give you a cue. Change is actually what we actually create the change. And this is what he talks about, how the words around money is being part of the cage which actually keeps us on that little hamster wheel going round and round. And then I'm going to have to run this pretty quickly, but the problem with property is that we all have to have, if you're in a row of houses and everyone's got lawns out the front, everyone will have their own lawnmower, won't they? Which is crazy. You can have one lawnmower for 20 houses, and you just decide that you're all going to like mow your lawn a different hour from everyone else. But we've all got to have our own cars and lawnmowers, and this is actually crazy because everything is being duplicated when it need not be. But because we've got this thing about cars have become status symbols instead of means of transport, which is why they've got ridiculous things like electric windows. You don't have electric windows in your house, do you? You know, what's wrong with your arm? You know, doing this. I apologise to anyone with posh car with electric windows. I'm just making a point, you know. I'm not having a go at you. So, and the whole idea of scarcity, whoops, I've just jumped one. The whole idea of scarcity is built in because of the current system of creating debt-based money, and that's why I sort of use the marbles of that. So, abundance is what is natural. You know, you look in nature. Nature is abundant. Everything grows. You don't have to make things grow. Things grow by themselves. Obviously, if you've got wonderful vegetables here, you need to tend them. But in a, you know, almost with permaculture, it's almost like the less you do, the more, you know, allow nature to actually take over. And here we say, sort of, you know, without money, we'd all be rich. And you know, there's something very true in that. So, transitioning to a gifting economy. Now, the first thing we've just got to think about is gratitude. If we're actually thankful for everything that we've got, then we can actually share things. Most of us that come together in groups, it's lovely to share things and work together. And one thing, have you come across the Pay It Forward? And you get these lovely little bags with Pay It Forward on it. And what you do, you have one of these, and when you come across a situation where you can actually help somebody out, or gift them, or give them a lift, or help somebody out if they're at the supermarket and they use their card and it gets declined, you bung them a few quid to actually pay for their groceries, and then you pass this on, and then they then do the same. And it's a way of trying to get people to start gifting each other. Random acts of kindness. And the Bronze Grove initiative. It's a similar sort of thing where people are being kind to each other. Because if you've got a situation of a gifting economy where everyone's sharing and giving to each other, as opposed to a greed economy, which is very centralised, throwing things away and full of waste and pollution and stupidity. And this is where I think community comes in, because it's very difficult to have a gifting economy when we're all sort of like not talking to each other. You don't know who your neighbours are. So this is where it's very important that, you know, we come together in community. And this is where Ubuntu comes in, and the work of Michael Tellinger. And as I say, I was very fortunate to meet him. I'm going to have to shoot because it's getting on for it's at 10 to 11 now, so I'm going to have to shoot. Did you say?
There's some CDs here at the back.
You've got some CDs. Okay, so what I suggest you do is get some CDs at the back for the information on Michael Tellinger. But basically, he said Ubuntu is basically going back to the way things were done in Africa, and because we lasted for hundreds of thousands of years without money, and we fed each other, and we worked together in communities, and that's how indigenous tribes that haven't been affected by Western civilization still go. There's not many of them left. But money is the problem, and the cause of 99% of the crime, cause why families fall apart, and the driving force behind ego, gluttony, jealousy, greed, envy, and the ugliest aspects of humanity. So, I can't go into that. Sorry, I'm just going to jump a few slides. But the person that says it cannot be done shouldn't interrupt the people doing it. There's some amazing initiatives, amazing work that's been going on at the moment. And I really feel we're at a point where things have got to change. And my slideshow's just died. What's this The time is now. The current financial system has run its course. It's like the game of Monopoly. It's all going to go back in the box. There's obviously going to be challenges. The powers that be may be powerful with their media, money and armed thugs. But we are infinitely more powerful. And I really believe that it's time to step into that power now. What the caterpillar calls the end of the world, the master calls the butterfly. And that was Richard Bach that said that. There's our butterfly. And I'm just going to finish with words from the Hopi people. We've been telling people that this is the 11th hour. Now you must go back and tell the people that this is the hour. And I'm sorry, I'm just going to finish with a short poem, which I think is rather beautiful. To my fellow swimmers, there is a river flowing very fast. It is so swift that there will be those who are afraid. They will try and hold on to the shore. They will feel they are being torn apart and will suffer greatly. Know that the river has a destination. The elders say we must let go of the shore, push off into the middle of the river. And I say, see who is there with you and celebrate. At this time in history, we are to take nothing personally, least of all ourselves. For the moment we do, our spiritual growth comes to a halt. The time of the lone wolf is over. Gather yourselves together as we are tonight. Banish the word struggle from your attitude and vocabulary. All that we do now must be done in a sacred manner and in celebration, for we are the ones we've been waiting for. Thank you very much for coming along tonight.
We've got about 10 minutes, so you can fire questions, not particular debt things, but any questions to the man himself. Bear in mind his deafness, so it may promote some...
And stupidity.
Ian?
Yes.
Yeah, regarding the end game, as such
Yes.
you referred to earlier, every now and then in the Financial Times, you'll see, as well as the price for gold, silver and platinum, they're slipping the price for carbon, for the carbon trading system that they're getting in place. And I reckon once cash goes, it'll all be electronic. You've all got cards. It'll be based on your carbon credits.
Yeah, agree. That would be their scenario. So.
Yeah.
And I think Al Gore, bless his heart, is already a carbon billionaire. I don't know if that means he's got billions worth of carbon. I don't really understand carbon trading. It's a control thing, isn't it? I don't think anyone here is taking man-made global warming too seriously, any more than the hockey stick graph. It's giving everyone a bit of a laugh. Yes?
Thought was, it's a lovely romantic notion that you should all get together and hold hands and love each other. What happens in your community when you've got, should we say, somebody who's a malevolent disposition, who's basically got their own agenda and running around doing what they want? Can you deal with that sort of thing?
Yeah, no, it's as we are at the moment. No, seriously. Within groups that I sort of, we have festivals and do groups where we sort of work together, and we have to work personal issues out. What we have to realise is, going back to this, and I keep repeating it, is our consciousness is shifting. And as it shifts, because we've grown up in a society which is fundamentally damaged, then we ourselves are fundamentally damaged emotionally. I know I am. I've done an awful lot of work on myself to peel off the layers of behaviour that I've had to get me through this society. Where, when I was younger, I was very egotistical, and I used to think, right, I've got everything for myself, and I've got to make lots of money, and my idea was to be a millionaire, because I thought if I was a millionaire, then at least I'd have enough resources to live comfortably myself. And it was only through doing a lot of introspective work and meditation that I actually realised, well, actually I'm everything that I can be already without anything external. And we want external things to make up for that little hole inside us. And when we all realise that we are all one and we're all connected, that's when we can come together at a fundamental level. And yes, there will be problems with us arguing and fighting, but there are some wonderful tools like non-violent communication, which is amazing ways of dealing with conflict at a level where you can keep emotion to one side. So does that answer your question?
No, the point I'm making is that that is a romantic notion. You'll never achieve that. And the simple reason you'll never achieve it is you will find in a group that is big enough by numbers, an ever-increasing population of malevolent human beings who will run their agenda and they will not negotiate with you. And it's the reason that large groups have fallen. They get infested with them, and because those individuals want their agenda, the rest of the group wander off their video and the whole thing is...
Ideal group sizes are around 140 people within little groups.
Brilliant, you'll have 6 psychopaths in that group.
yeah.
And maybe 1.5
Must have been to one of my family weddings.
Six
psychopaths
in the room.
They are all negotiable. They are all negotiable.
We are all...
Buying the Guinness.
The point I'm really making is those...
I appreciate your point. I appreciate your point.
Those who are actually becoming aware and enlightened are leaving those people behind.
Yes.
And for my sensibilities, people are finding them a little more obvious than they used to be.
Yes.
I've got a feeling there's a massive ostracisation is going to take place.
Yes.
As those who are healthy enough
Yes.
can grow,
Yes.
and those that aren't get left behind, and we start spotting these retards who are wandering around, demanding everything for themselves, talking in the plural when they mean the singular, etc., etc., etc. You know, that I think is more realistic, that you're going to have a large group of the population evolving, making those that infested us so bloody obvious now, we're going to be able to know who they are on sight because of their behaviour.
However, the energetics of those of us who are waking up and looking to change our behaviour and our energetics, there's an energetic level. And the more we go and start getting in alignment with truth and honesty and everything else, that's affecting everyone else. Every thought we have goes out like a ripple in a pond and affects everything else. So, you know, this is why I talk about the 100th monkey effect being so important, because it pushes consciousness. I really feel it does. And it also goes exponential, just like the monetary system. And when our consciousness catches up and overtakes that peak in the monetary system, that's when we can start looking at gifting economies.
I'm not going to move very
Yes, sir, with the benefit.
When you get all those things, we have something I call linear living, whereby you can scuttle in and out of your little house with your boundaries and your fences, and we're enabled by things like oil to have this linear living, but we're forced to let go of this by the way things will evolve, rather than even making choices without knowledge. We will be forced into this situation where we will have to communicate with our neighbour and work together with what we've got.
It's the only option. It is the only option. The only other option is that we carry on what we're doing, we use up all the Earth's resources and pollute everything until there's nothing left to eat.
I have an idea. The people who we've got problems with in society wouldn't have a problem if we just take them in a room and inject them with some THC.
This is not the view of Truthjuice. It's not sanctioned by Truthjuice.
The views expressed by our members aren't necessarily...
I mean, I'm a technocrat in the sense that I appreciate where you're coming from. I think there's room for challenge and abuse and things. And I think the resource-based economy and the whole gamut of having access, not knowledge, I think, and again, really, create the abundance, not scarcity. Yes. And the centralised computer is just more finely system managing it. It's not. I was giving you my view of it, but I think it can be a. For me, I'm just scared of the centralisation, and I just like to see it spread out a little bit. I'd like to see it bottom up. Say again?
The new global currency is green, so behind you,
Steve over there.
Yeah, right now the psychopaths are in control.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Carrying on with the same system.
Yes.
isn't going to get any better. We have to have a shift in consciousness. The only shift in consciousness is when we move from the current paradigm to a brand new paradigm, and we make it work.
Yeah, I like that.
Steve?
In Spain, where apparently they've had a lot of trouble with the banks the last few years, apparently I've seen this on the internet, they've been registering their protest by writing slogans on the banknotes.
Yeah.
So they can work their way back to the banks. People whose hands have passed through see that and they think, oh, I've got a few slogans on my own and I'd like to comment on that. And everyone's writing the banknotes, apparently. So, you know, is that something that we should do? It's very
I know a few people that get out debt free on them.
What sort of things would you write about this? I've got a book called Small Street Sort, little gestures of process that anyone can do without having to really go to that in trouble. And I saw the Spanish effort and I thought, well, we should be doing that here. What should we be writing on our background?
Well, I quite like the idea of the, somebody in Brighton that written get out of debt free or, any other sort of website, sharing information. I feel whether it's writing on banknotes or seawalls or it's basically, we can all talk about what we're into amongst ourselves. It's almost like we have two modes of communication. We know that within this room we can talk about lots of things. That you go to your PTA meeting, at the school, or you go somewhere else and you start talking about 9/11 or money, and they start thinking you're a little bit weird. But the way round that, I feel the most powerful way is just planting seeds with people, saying something, not pushing it, and then just mentioning something and walking away. And if they're interested and they want to know more, they'll ask you, and they often do. And you might have to drop one or two seeds, but it's not that sort of, oh look, 9/11 was an inside job. It's like, the Bank of England. It's very easy to and when I started out, that's what I was like. And now I just mention something, Diet Coke, it's Spartane, can't be broken down by your body. Walk away. Now, if they're not interested, they won't ask anything else. And they go, what do you mean it can't be, I said, well, you know that it was actually brought in, the FDA actually banned it originally, and they had to put someone else in from the government, So it's just that little thing. And, it's just sharing the love at the end of the day.
Shall we share the love?